One of the biggest mistakes we make as humans is to try and correct internal states through external pursuits. And what I mean by that is that we try and perfect something internal. We try and reduce feelings of stress, reduce feelings of anxiety, reduce feelings of desperation or despondency by trying to improve external conditions, where we live, who we interact with. It is true that you could get some partial or temporary improvement in how you feel by improving the external situation. But to find a lasting state of improvement, so to improve our internal state permanently, we need to try to find internal solutions to internal problems, mental solutions for mental problems, emotional solutions for emotional problems, and stop focusing on trying to improve our internal state simply by rectifying something external. So you may feel unhappy in a relationship, or you might be stressed out and burnt out at work. By changing your partner or your job, you might achieve some temporary improvement to how you feel inside. But this is a treadmill. It's a never-ending pursuit if you only focus on improving the external situation. So it behooves us to try to find out what we can correct internally rather than externally. Very often, when we're faced with a feeling of stress or burnout or unhappiness, what we should be doing is looking at our internal state. When you're stressed out at work, it's because you have some kind of unrealistic expectation for how things should be. So if you have too much work, someone is expecting you to finish that work in a given amount of time and meet a deadline. And you're taking that expectation upon yourself because you want to keep your job, you want to advance in life, you want to get promotions. So you've internalized that unrealistic expectation that somebody else imposes on you. And the same can be said with relationships. If you're unhappy in your relationship, there's usually some expectation that you have from the other person. They should be treating you a certain way, or they shouldn't be treating you in a way that you don't like. And that doesn't mean that, I'm not saying that you're wrong about that, but if we examine that expectation, we may find that it's unrealistic. It's unrealistic, for example, for your spouse to constantly be catering to every whim fancy that you have. Everything that you like, everything that you don't like, You want them to do this with you, or you don't want them to do that without you, or you want them to go off and be on their own, leave you alone. Whatever the expectation is, whatever is causing you stress, you have to identify that expectation, which might be unrealistic. It's unreasonable to expect the roads to be empty during rush hour. Everyone's trying to get to work, or everyone's trying to get home. There will be lots of cars on the road. So it's unrealistic for you to expect the roads to be empty. If you do expect the roads to be empty, you'll feel stressed out. You'll be stressed out by the traffic. On the other hand, if you're sitting in traffic and you understand that it is rush hour and it is unrealistic to expect there to be no cars on the road, you give yourself a chance to resolve that internal state of stress. Just by understanding, just by reminding yourself, hey, I'm not the only one who's trying to get to or from work right now. That readjusts your expectation. If you expect summer to be nice and cool, or winter to be warm, you'll be unhappy because you have an unrealistic expectation. So let's examine these unrealistic expectations, or these expectations that we may find are somewhat unrealistic or completely unrealistic. By examining them, by rationally looking at them and thinking about them, we can pinpoint the aspect of our expectation that's unrealistic, that just can't be the way we want it to be. And then we learn to accept those things. We learn to accept that there will be traffic during rush hour. There's a prayer by St. Francis of Assisi that goes in part like this: teach me to have the wisdom to know what I can control in life and what I cannot, and the wisdom to know the difference. I've totally wrecked that quote. But the point is, there are things that you can control in life, there are things that you cannot, and we need the wisdom to recognize the difference and accept those things that we cannot control. By accepting what we cannot control, what we cannot change, we resolve this unrealistic expectation, and we start to expect that during rush hour there will be traffic. During summer it will be hot, and during winter it will be cold. And by accepting the way things are and the fact that we don't have the power to change them, that alone begins to resolve the internal stress that we feel.